Right, good evening, hello, and welcome to this week's Women's Football Chat live show. We'll give people a little bit of time to get into tonight's live stream, but do say hello on the chat. Let us know where you are listening, well, watching rather, should I say, from this evening, and we will crack straight on in a minute or so. And hopefully this week goes off with less of a hitch than last week's did. However, not overly hopeful. I've been having difficulties with the internet all day here, whether it's been down to the storm or what have you, and whether the wind has played a part in the connection, or whether that's an old wives' tale, I don't know. But I'm keeping my eye on the dropped frame rate. I've had to turn the video bitrate right down in order for this to hopefully be steady enough. So we'll see. So what my plan is to do is to pretty much race through all the stuff we've got to talk about, and then so I won't be ignoring you in the live chat, but we'll race through all of that, and then at the end what I'll do is I'll go back through all of the questions and comments and everything else that I've been getting in on Twitter that you've been putting in on the live chat this evening, and whatever there, if it then goes, it goes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm trying to keep my eye on it as best I can. We haven't seemed to have dropped any frames really since the start of this show, although I like to say I have dropped frames on 2 occasions already this evening, but we'll just see how things go. So welcome along to this week's Women's Football Chat. My name is Chris Gadsby. I'm here every Thursday at 8 p.m. now, bringing you the very latest from the 3rd and 4th tiers of women's football here in England. That's the FA Women's National League. 3 bits of news to go through, then we've got League Cup, League Play and FA Cup to run through. So we're going to start, we'll start with the League Cup really, because the FAWNL has announced that this season's League Cup final will be taking place at Walsall's Poundland Bescot Stadium. It's hosting 11,300 capacity, and it hosts Super League side Aston Villa at the moment. Now, in the article, it says 8 teams are still left in the competition. Well, that's now down to 6 after this weekend, all hoping to win the 33rd edition of the Cup. Last year, the final was held at Kenilworth Road in front of nearly 4,000 spectators, and it will be played on the weekend of the 22nd and 23rd of March 2025. So a little bit of time to wait before then, but the chair of the FA Women's National League Board said it continues to grow each year. The leagues are becoming more competitive. Reflecting this growth is the calibre of stadiums we're selecting for the League Cup final. The final is always one of the best days in the calendar, and this year will be no different. We thank Walsall for all their help in making this possible. Good venue choice, really, kind of in the Midlands, so it's relatively, about as fair as you can probably get at this stage of the competition, with who's going to be where and which 2 teams are going to contest the final. Good connections to the rest of the country, all things like that. So it'll be a really good place, and from what I understand from my colleagues at the BBC, it's got decent media facilities as well. So it should be all right to broadcast from there, particularly for me, should Forest get into it. Good evening to you, Nick. Sweepstake on how many games are washed out this weekend. Don't know, we'll see. I don't know what I haven't, to be genuinely honest, I've not checked the forecast, so I have no idea what the weather at the weekend is meant to be. Right, let's go to managerial appointments. Billericay Town have announced the appointment of Colin Reid as the new first team manager. He was first team manager and RTC technical director for Millwall Lionesses in the women's game, to an unbeaten league campaign and 78% win rate. He's also got experience in the men's game from coaching roles with Maidstone, Macclesfield and Bishop Stortford, and he also managed in academy setups such as West Ham, Spurs, Charlton Athletic and Leyton Orient. Having led the team in training this week, Colin's first match in charge will be this Sunday away to Exeter. I'll let you know shortly how he got on. And finally, to London Seaward, who have announced the arrival of Jason Murray as the new first-team manager. He has an impressive CV, having managed Forest Crusaders, Romford, Clapton and Buckhurst Hill. He's currently the head of men's football at the University of East London. He says they are aware of the task that he has ahead of him. Nobody comes into a management role in November with the team sitting at the top of the league. My conversations with the club over the last 3 weeks were all very positive, instantly clear we shared the same drive and ambition to progress on and off the pitch. The key target is to secure Tier 4 football for the club next season and to give the team the stability it's lacked in a very challenging campaign to date. He oversaw training for the last couple of weeks, was in the dugout for the 1-0 loss to 6th tier side Brentford in the second round, and now has the position with immediate effect. London Seaward, of course, really fighting at the bottom of Division 1 South East. Right, let's get straight down to it then. There's a lot of results from different competitions to go through. We're going to start in the Southern Premier Division, and that should say 4-1, not 3-1. I don't know where I got 3-1 from. Let me see if it will allow me to change it on the fly, which it has done before. But yes, Exeter City 4, Billericay Town 1. Phoebe Baker, Georgie Marie Barb Gresham, Sarah Stacey and Zoe Watkins with the goals for Exeter City. Now, interestingly, again, if you go on to full time, all of those have 2 footballs next to him, which means I believe that they have gone down on the full-time stats system as 2 goals each, which might be very interesting indeed when it comes to stats at the end of the season. Let me just jump back a page, because sometimes it gets funny if I try and change pages while they are on that page, and then it should have changed. There we go. Exeter City 4, Billericay Town 1. Billericay Town's only goal coming to Shauna Manelli with just well, it doesn't actually say the time. Oh, we seem to have dropped some more frames. That would have been when I was changing all the stuff elsewhere. Right, Southern Premier Division. Oh, sorry, no, go back one. Ipswich Town 5, AFC Wimbledon 0. 2 for Summer Hughes, 1 for Megan Wearing, Maria Boswell and Grace Garrard for Ipswich, who continue to fly high at the top of the Southern Premier Division table. Speaking of that table, only one move then. Exeter City in 3rd, Oxford United go down to 4th, with Exeter winning, Oxford not playing. But Ipswich Town, they remain at the top. They are now, though, 3 points clear and still have a game in hand over the chasing pack. With their big 5-0 win over Wimbledon. Billericay Town remain in 8th, but of course you can see there between 8th and 9th a big gap of 5 points, meaning that now it's kind of turning into the bottom 4, which 2 of those bottom 4 are going to go down. Division 1 Midlands then, 2 games to go through here. Leafield Athletic, a perhaps surprise defeat away at Sutton Coldfield Town by 2 goals to 1. 1-1 at half time. Jessica Lowe in the 27th minute for Leafield Athletic, Neve Deasy in the 67th minute for Sutton Coldfield Town, and if I remember correctly, there was an own goal in that game as well. Yes, in the 6th minute. So Sutton Coldfield Town going in front, getting pegged back, and then going back in front again through Neve Deasy. And Boldmere St Michael's 3, Solihull Moors 1. Boldmere don't have any of their lineup or anything like that on full time yet. Sarah Gannon with the goal for Solihull Moors. Now, if I go on to Boldmere St Michael's team, because I only did my stats document earlier on today, I might be able to remember who scored the goals. It was 1 for Anna Wilcox, 1 for Molly Towers, and the other one was for I can't remember who the other one was for, I'll be honest, but it was 2 of them were that was what well, those were 2 of them were Wilcox and Towers. Can't remember who the 3rd one was, but Boldmere St Michael's, you should really have it on by now, let's be honest. But we'll move on then to the Midlands table, where Bonwell St Michael's continue their game of leapfrog with Notts County. They're up to 5th now, 1 point ahead of Notts, but Notts have a game in hand. And Sutton Coldfield Town, with that win, lift themselves to 7 points clear of the relegation zone, albeit with Solihull Moors having a game in hand. Through into Division 1 North then. And Huddersfield Town with the big victory, 6-1 over AFC Fylde. 2 for Yasmin Mason, 1 for Beth Stanfield, Charlotte Stewart, Leah Embley and Scarlett McMahon. The only goal for AFC Fylde, a consolation goal really, with 3 minutes to go for Lois Moore. Norton Stockton Ancients 0, Leeds United 3. Good away win for Leeds United. 2 for Amy Woodruff and 1 for Catherine Smith in that game. And then a draw between York City and Barnsley, 1-1. Grace Sykes in the 27th minute, Alana Milliard in the 73rd minute, a draw for them, meaning Leeds United go top of the table. This was their game in hand and they have won it. So they are 3 points clear of Cheadle Stingers and Chorley, and then a further point clear of Huddersfield Town and Middlesbrough. But at the exact halfway point of the Division 1 North table, the top 5 teams are separated by 4 points. Then there is a huge gap down to Barnsley in 6th on 11, but then the bottom sides there. So it's 4 points separating 1st from 5th. It's 4 points separating 6th from the bottom of the table. Not only is Division 1 North the closest league in terms of points scored, it's also the best league in terms of teams getting their games played and all being pretty much level as the season progresses. So I think I will say it every week, but that looks to be the game, so the league that everyone will be keeping an eye on towards the end of the season. South East results then, just 2 to go through. And basically the 2 teams in that fight towards the bottom both lost. Cheshire United losing 6-1 away at London Bees. 2 for Lily Whitelock and for Hayley Hoare for London Bees, as well as Megan Burrows and Samantha Gabion for the home side. Natalia Makowska getting the only goal for London Bees. And Chatham Town winning away at London Seaward by 3-1. Lottie Sharp, Darcy Wells and Amelia Woodgate with the goals for Chatham. Chloe O'Brien with the only goal for London Seaward, scoring that in the 18th minute. What it means then, London Bees are up 3 places. That's how tight the midfield of Division 1 South East is. They are up to 4th on 19 points. They are 5 behind Rail Bedford at the top of the table, but Bedford have a game in hand. Chatham remain 3rd. They are only now there on goals scored though, and have a game in hand on Actonians. They are just 1 point from the top of the table as well. And then towards the bottom, Cheshire United and London Seaward both lose. So they are in 10th and 11th respectively. And that gap now between Cheshire United in 10th and Cambridge United in 9th is 6 points still. And as the games tick on, it looks ever more like it's going to be a mini league between those sides. Finally, in South West, then, just 2 games to go through here as well. Keynsham United, having had their game against Abingdon postponed last weekend, played it this weekend and won by a Naomi Clipston goal to 0 in the 56th minute. Bournemouth Sports against Bristol Rovers was postponed, and Worthing against Maidenhead United. Worthing's goals coming to Katie Cooper, Sophie Humphrey and Danielle Rowe in the 23rd, 39th and 55th minute. Maidenhead United have not got their lineup onto full time yet either. Their goal scorer, let me see if I can remember that one, came to Macy Nikia Walters. So those are the league results. Then we have, as I said, I've finished my spreadsheet, 16 games now with missing opposition player of the match awards. The worst offenders, York City, 6 missing awards from their 10 league games. London Seaward the next with 2 missing awards, and then there's 8 teams with just 1 missing each. It could, of course, have an impact on who gets the player of the season in each league, but we'll keep you across that as the season progresses. Coming up, of course, we are now going into the penultimate weekend before the winter break. Once those final games have been played before the winter break, as I did last year, the mid-season stats will come out, and then I'll do an update on the mid-season award races as well. Southwest table then, we'll just quickly have a look at that. Worthing are up 2 places to 6th with 15 points, but Keynsham Town remain 5th after their win over Abingdon, who are 9th, and then Worthing, as I said, leapfrog Maidenhead United by beating them by 3 goals to 1. Right, let's move on to the FA Cup second round proper. These are the games that should have been played the weekend before last. They weren't, and now they've all been completed, apart from one, which is happening now. It is Stoke City against Loughborough Lightning. After 2 attempts of playing it at Stoke, it is now taking place in Loughborough, and at this exact moment in time, the score is, it was 2-1 to Stoke when I started this stream, but it could be very different now as we just have a look. But yeah, this is the final second round game to be played, with Stoke City having now to travel to Loughborough after taking so long, well, after failing on numerous occasions to get the game on. 3-1, 4-1. Okay, it looks as though it's going to be Stoke City going through into the third round of the Women's FA Cup. But Hull City 0, Middlesbrough 0. So Middlesbrough winning on penalties, the Tier 4 side knocking out the Tier 3 side. Burnley beating 5th tier Bradford City by 11 goals to 0. Can't bring you any of that, it isn't on full time. Cheadle Stingers comfortably winning against FC St Helens by 4 goals to 0. A hat-trick for Rachel Dunlop, 48, 57, 76, and 1 for Yasmin Ahmed in the 18th minute as well. So relatively comfortable for Cheadle Stingers. As I said, Stoke City against Loughborough postponed. They're playing that now. Nottingham Forest beating Lonitchington by 19 goals to 0. There was 5 for Freya Thomas, 5 for Bridget Galloway, 3 for Charlie Wellings, 2 for Sophie Domingo, and 1 each for Molly Green, Holly Manders, Holly Olding, and Amy Sims. So what's that? 8 different scorers for Forest over the course of that game. 19-0, they win it. Queen's Park Rangers 5, Saltdean United 0. A hat-trick for Grace Stanley in this one, and Courtney Ward Chambers. And then Stevenage. So I've spotted that I'm dropping frames at a remarkable rate. Come on. This is what happens, you've got to try and fix things on the fly. Try that, see if that sorts itself out. No, we are losing frame rate absolutely everywhere. Yep, continuing to lose frames everywhere we go. Come on. Right, let me have a look. See if that's done anything. Right, maybe it's done something, maybe it hasn't. I tried stopping and starting it again. See if that will calm it down. Queen's Park Rangers 5, Saltdean United 0. Grace Stanley with a hat-trick, 1 for Courtney Ward Chambers and 1 for Anna Dizdiak. And then Luton Town beating Stevenage. This was an all Tier 5 affair. 15-14 on penalties. They needed 32 penalties to separate those two sides in the Women's FA Cup. Right, let's move through into the FAWNL Cup then. We'll start with the WNL Cup. Hashtag United 4, Real Bedford 0. Goals in this one for Hashtag United to Francesca Finlayson, Malika Gill, Hayley West and Jade Keogh. And Plymouth Argyle, great win for them at home to Watford. Lulu Jarvis on the half-hour mark, the only goal in that game. But Plymouth Argyle then winning that by 1-0, getting themselves into the semi-final, which they were 2 years ago, and they came up against Nottingham Forest. Forest on their way to winning it that year. Let's go through then to the plate. This is the final thing of results we need to go through. Bournemouth beating Cambridge United by 2-1. Charlotte Gillies with the only goal for Cambridge United, but Molly Clark in the 10th minute, Chloe Gilroy in the 66th minute with the goals for Bournemouth. Extra time was needed between Stockport County and Cheltenham Town. Elizabeth Hamer had put Stockport County in front in the 53rd minute, but Lily Wellesley Davis in the 84th equalised for Cheltenham, and then Maisie Collis in the 5th minute of extra time put them in front. And Norwich City had the 1-0 lead and lost it to Southampton Academy. Isabel Moore with the goal for Norwich, but Anya Lucas in the 67th minute and Kaylee Buckingham in the 89th minute put Southampton ahead. And they are now into the semi-finals of the plate. The game between Loughborough and Manchester United, well, that will be played on the 15th. They've scheduled that in for. So hopefully, looks as though now Loughborough might well be out of the FA Cup. They are currently 4-1 down to Stoke City, and that might have got worse. Now it is 4-1 to Stoke City at half time. Looks as though they're going to go through, and that means that nobody in Division 1 Midlands other than Loughborough Lightning will be in any form of cup competition. They then come up against Manchester United Academy. Hopefully they can knock Manchester United Academy out. Otherwise we're going to have 2 academy sides in the semi-final of the plate, and there is such a danger that it's going to be an all academy final, which would just be horrendous. Right, we'll quickly run through fixtures. I'm aware that frames have been dropping and we have been having issues. Then we'll get on to any questions that I've had through the week or that you've got in the live chat now, and then we'll wrap up because, yeah, things don't seem to be going awfully well this evening. As I said, I've had problems all day. Northern Premier Division, just one game, and actually this is the last game of 2024 in the Northern Premier Division. The bottom 2 coming up against each other, Sporting Cowser against Halifax. Halifax, unless they have a win by 5 goals, will still be bottom at Christmas, but they could close that gap to 2 points to Stourbridge. If Sporting Cowser win, they go out of the relegation zone and Stourbridge drop in it for Christmas. One game in the Southern Premier Division, AFC Wimbledon against Plymouth Argyle. Wimbledon are there in 7th. Plymouth are down in the relegation zone, but again they can climb out of it and put Gwalior United in it if they win. Midlands fixtures, full programme supposedly if everything be if Loughborough do lose this weekend. Barnsley Women's against Boldmere St Michael's, that is 7th against 5th. Lincoln United take on Notts County, 9th against 6th. Loughborough Lightning in 4th against Lincoln City, who are bottom of the table. Northampton Town against Leafield Athletic, the battle of the top 2. Leafield could really do with winning that game, otherwise they'll fall 3 points behind Northampton, and Northampton will have a game in hand. Peterborough United are in 3rd. They take on Worcester City, who are in 10th. And Sutton Coldfield Town against Solihull Moors is 8th against 11th. In Division 1 North, there are 4 games. AFC Fylde against Barnsley, that is 12th against 6th. Chorley take on York City, which is 3rd against 10th. Durham Sestra against Doncaster Rovers Bells is 8th against 11th. And Norton Stockton Ancients against Stockport County is 7th against 9th. Into South East, Actonians against Cambridge United is second against ninth. Ashford Town against Real Bedford, 12th against first. Bottom against top. And then the other bottom sides in the bottom three. London Seawood hosting Chesham United. They beat them on opening day. They really do need to do the double on Chesham United. And AFC Sudbury against Chatham Town is 5th against 3rd. Into Division 1 Southwest, Abingdon United against Bridgewater United is 9th against 8th. Maidenhead United against Moneyfields, that is 7th against 3rd. Portishead take on Bournemouth Sports in that battle towards the bottom. Winner out of the relegation zone. Portishead currently out there by a point, but if Bournemouth Sports can beat them, then Portishead will drop in. And Swindon Town against Keynsham Town is 2nd against 5th. And there we go. Those are the results coming through from, for the fixtures for the next 7 days. Right, let's have a discussion then about things that have happened this week in the FAWNL, and I got some questions through. Question number 1 comes from Nick, who says, if the championship becomes WSL2, which has been kind of thrown around a little bit this week, should the FAWNL Tier 3 become national as WSL 3 with an expanded Super League and Championship? I was thinking about this earlier on this week actually, and throwing some ideas around on the spreadsheet. I think the next step is to have what I would do if I could, like clay, mold it all down, bring it back up again. I'd have Super League as 16 teams, I'd have Championship as 16 teams, I'd have Tier 3 North and South as 16 teams, and then I'd combine North and Midlands Tier 4, South East and South West Tier 4 into Tier 4 North to Tier 4 South, 16 teams in each as well. Then what I would do is get rid of the plate. So you play, 30 games it'll be, get rid of the plate. You can keep the cup, but make it, I was kind of having to think about this. So I would do groups, a little bit like the EFL Trophy, but not involving those stupid PGA teams. Groups of 4, play 1 game each. The Tier 4 sides host, so they get the extra revenue. And then the game between the 2 Tier 4 sides and the game between the 2 Tier 3 sides, the home side's drawn. And then you go knockout after that with group winners and group second places and the like, and that way you still get games in, but you don't have the plate, is what I would do. Tier 3 coming national, I think there probably are enough clubs now that could do it. It's whether the league wants to. The Super League and the Championship needs to expand, that's a given. But it's whether the FA feels that the FAWNL is in a position at the moment to do that. We've seen how much, for example, I had a couple people message me when hashtag got drawn with Derby in the cup, and they didn't like that. They have to go all the way to Derby. Well, if you've got to go national and you're travelling a lot further than that, is the desire to do that there? You could argue probably not. So I think at least for the short term, I think it's going to stay split. I think national is the way to go long term, because if you have a national Tier 3, I think it's more likely to give you a smoother transition into Tier 2, and therefore we might not see as much yo-yoing. So I think it's the way to go. I just don't think it's going to happen particularly quickly. That's the problem. And then I had a message in from Harleycat6 on X. Says, you should complain about the FAWNL treatment and coverage of their reserve league, and especially the cup draws, which appear out of nowhere with no build-up or acknowledgement. Yes, so the reserve semi-final cup and plate draws came out this week. If you weren't on full time refreshing the page at some random points throughout the week, or you don't follow any of the sides that are in the reserve cup and plate semi-finals, then you would have no idea it had happened, because there has been absolutely nothing from the league. It's not given the same gratitude of a live draw, which, you can, in the men's game, reserve cups aren't done either, but I think it's something that could have easily been done. And at least a tweet that says what the draw is I think pretty basic, and the fact that that's not been done isn't great. You couple that with what happened last year with reserve Golden Glove, and that going to the wrong person again. That's not very good either. So yeah, it just seems that the reserve section is kind of the less thought about child, really, and that's not necessarily the right way of thinking about it, because the players in this reserve section are eyeing up a spot in the first team, and that's for many that's the first step on the ladder to hopefully progressing up more, and it's difficult when it seems to be completely overlooked. So I think that's a difficult one to kind of stomach, really, for a lot of teams and players in the reserve section. So then other questions coming in. Yes, they put them in the chat if you want. So Nick says, is the Midlands a 2-horse race now between Loughborough and Northampton, or could Leafield and Posh still win it? And then he says, which FA Cup tie do you expect to cause an upset? Right, we'll start with the FA Cup. It's not until next week, so we'll cover it a lot more on next week's show. But let's have a look at those FA Cup draws now that they've been done. So we have got, the frames are going again. Chester Street against, well, looks likely to be Stoke City. Kidderminster against Blackburn, Wolves Shrewsbury, Feds against Sheffield United, Newcastle United Middlesbrough, West Brom Cheadle, Birmingham City Durham, Sunderland Huddersfield Town, Rugby Borough Mancunian Unity, Forest Burnley in the north, and in the south, Ipswich Bournemouth, Portsmouth Luton Town, London City Lionesses Gwali United, Brentford Fulham, Oxford United Bristol Rovers, Charlton Athletic Lewes, Southampton Bristol City, Cheltenham Town Norwich City, Exeter City Worthing, and London Bees QPR. The most likely shock, I think, is Cheadle Town beating West Bromwich Albion. In all honesty, I think the rest you could probably pick and be relatively sure about it. In my views, I think that is the most likely one to come through. And then Nick says, is the Midlands a 2-horse race? Let me go through and bring back up the Midlands table. That's going to be the easiest way to have a look. So it's difficult, I think. So Loughborough have got 2 games in hand on Northampton. They are 5 points behind, so they can move to 28. If you say 3 in hand on Leafield Athletic, that's 31. That's a 4-point gap at the halfway stage of the season. I think that's still wide open, to be honest. I still think it's any one of those top 4 that can go up in the Midlands. It only takes, Northampton and Loughborough Lightning have got Northampton's game in hand is against Loughborough, so that could go either way, and then you're bringing it right back together. So I still think it's any one of those top 4. It only takes a surprise loss, for example, like Leafield had to Sutton last week, to completely change that. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I think it's still wide open, in my opinion, to be honest. But yeah, that will then about do it for this week's episode of the Women's Football Chat. Now, next week it's back to a recorded episode because I'm away next Thursday evening. And so we'll go back to recorded next Thursday. And then it's the Christmas break. So we'll have a very short episode on the 19th of December. Because we'll only have one round of results to look back at, and we won't have anything to look ahead to. So it'll be a short one on the 19th. Then we'll have Boxing Day off because everybody's got better things to do with their Boxing Day than sit here and listen to me. And then we'll be back in the new year. So next week's recorded, then we'll have a live show on the 19th, which will round up the first half of the season. But thank you very much for watching and or listening to this week's episode of the Women's Football Chat. And it may well have been listening for much of this because the frame rate was not good, which I thought it wouldn't be, because the internet's just been terrible here all day. But yes, at W Football Chat on X. We're also on Blue Sky as well, the place to go for all the latest info for the FAWNL. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.